Hello, welcome to the Sideboard here at the Star City Games Team Open in Philadelphia, part of the SCG Tour, brought to you by Ultimate Guard and Carnox Chairs. I'm Nick Miller alongside Team Nova's Aaron Barich. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Having fun.
Week 1 standard. There's going to be an aggressive deck. I go to Aaron Barich for the aggressive deck. Mono red is here, but not the mono red deck a lot of people expected post-rotation.
Yeah, mono red that people were expecting was the cavalcade-based decks. You know, more one-drops, playing things like 10 Street Dodgers and Ginger Brutes and all that kind of stuff. And that's just not what I'm into when I'm trying to play these red decks. You know, I don't want to be that all in. And one of the things I loved about the red deck I won the Open with in Worcester before rotation was that the deck was really good at grinding. You could play this long game, you had some powerful cards, and the cavalcade deck just doesn't let you do that. You've got all these little dummies and so many bad top decks.
A lot of 1-mana 1/1s when your deck forces you to play with 1-mana 1/1s.
Right.
And they're not that good off the top.
Yeah, it's certainly a big problem. So instead, when you're playing this red deck, you get access to things like Steamkin, which is one of the cards that's just considered to be one of the best red cards you can be playing. It's like a 2-mana 4/4 that's a ritual in some games and does a lot of powerful stuff. You get access to the 2 new creatures, the adventure creatures Rimrock Knight and Bonecrusher Giant. Those cards are really great. Bonecrusher Giant especially helps with that kind of grindy plan, being a 2-for-1. And you still can play Torbran, which is one of the big things the Cavalcade deck got. But in this deck, you're playing more burn spells, and you're still able to use Torbran effectively when you curve out to, maybe you're not giving 5 1-power creatures extra 2 damage, but you're giving your 3 creatures an extra 2 damage, and you're still attacking for 12, and that's what matters.
You're playing a lot more real cards that are still really good with Torbran.
Right, exactly.
Other cards we got going on here, so Scorch Spitter is the lone survivor from the Cavalcade decks. I guess, sorry, the Fervent Champion's still there too. Yeah. But the important thing I noticed from your deck is you actually have another Knight to pair with it.
I do. One of the cards, Rimrock Knight, is just incredibly impressive to me. It is a Knight for Fervent Champion, which is, a thing that the red deck's kind of lacking in the other builds. You have this problem where you play Fervent Champion, you never have anything else to put it on, and you just have this 1/1 first striker, which is fine, but it's not exciting. With the addition of with Rimrock Knight, that card combos with Fervent Champion on multiple levels. Because you have this 1/1 first striker, you can attack into board states where a 1/1 first striker shouldn't be able to, and people will play around shock sometimes, pumping your creature or making your first striker trade up, but now you have more access to that.
Yep.
So you have 4 shocks, 4 Rimrock Knights, and 4 Bonecrusher Giants. So you're able to turn all these shocks into bolts. You're able to turn your spells that have a problem killing a lot of things into things that actually do, and that's a huge deal. Not only that, Fervent Champion into Rimrock Knight, you're attacking for 5 on turn 3. That's a pretty good aggressive start, especially against the Golas decks that don't interact very well.
Right. We might no longer have Lightning Strike, but we have a bunch of ways to turn your shocks into Lightning Strikes.
Exactly.
Outside of that, the Bonecrusher Giant, just on rate alone, everyone saw this card. It's going to do work. I imagine it is doing that.
Oh yeah, it's super good. This is a deck, again, you're trying to often kill your opponent's synergy stuff early, have some threats in play chipping at your opponent, and then you end the game with one of these 4s, you're able to cast additional threats. So Bonecrusher Giant being able to interrupt their early game stuff, killing things like Goose, while still being a powerful threat is nice. Bonecrusher Giant and Rimrock Knight also work incredibly well with Runaway Steamkin, because you just get so many spells for your Steamkin in a game. There's a lot of games with the red deck before where your Steamkin maybe didn't become a 4/4. Now it's not that hard for you to play a Steamkin on 2, cast 2 spells on 3, and on turn 4 you get to stomp with the Giant and cast it off of your Steamkin.
That's pretty good.
So doing sequences like that are really, really, really powerful. So the adventure creatures really show their power with Steamkin in this deck.
All right. We have a lot of the same stuff going on that the old red deck had with Steamkin into Experimental Frenzy. You've got Light Up the Stage still here. You've got Shock. You've got Skewer the Critics still here. Important upgrade though, Slaying Fire.
Yeah, upgrade's kind of a stretch. So I like to compare Bonecrusher Giant to our Lightning Strike. It's our 2-mana kill their thing on 2. And we didn't really have a Slaying Fire in the old build. There was no bigger burn spell that was really worth playing. And now we have one. 4 is the critical point. There's people trying to block the red deck, play 4 toughness creatures. Things like Fae of Wishes are very popular. Questing Beast, Venerated Loxodon. Being able to kill those is a huge, huge deal. Not only that, there's a lot of games that really close out quickly with a couple of Slaying Fires. 8 damage is a lot. You start the game with a 1-drop and do a 2-drop, get a couple points in, and suddenly you have this board where you have a Steamkin and 3 lands, and you're just able to cast both of your Slaying Fires and kill your opponent.
That's a lot of damage really fast.
It is tons and tons of damage. Big fan of that card in the decks for sure.
Other card we have to talk about, the Castle Inbreath here.
Yeah.
How much is this doing?
It does a small amount. It's much worse in this deck than the Cavalcade deck, because the Cavalcade deck, again, plays way more creatures, way more small things. You're not able to trade your creatures up a lot with it, but the games where it matters, it really matters. You know, the games where you hit 5 or 6 lands, you're able to activate it, sneak in an extra shock's worth of damage, maybe trade your Rimrock Knight up for that 4 toughness creature. Things like that happen a pretty good amount, and it's really, really free in this type of deck. You know, being a monocolor deck, you get to really play a lot of castles and abuse them well.
Right. How does this deck shape up in the metagame? Because we've had a couple of events already, online events. Everyone coming into this event knew the Golos decks and the Simic decks were definitely what the meta was going to be based around. How do you feel with this deck against those decks?
Yeah, I think this deck actually lines up pretty well against both of those. You would think that the deck doesn't line up very well against the food deck because they gain a bunch of life, but that's why we're not playing the Cavalcade deck, because we have the option to grind. We have these bigger cards. My opponent can pop 2 food and gain 6 life, but it's okay if I have a Frenzy or a Torbrand going. Okay? Against the Golos decks, we're very quick. They're really low to the ground. Or we're really low to the ground, and they're being less low to the ground. They're cutting things like Arboreal Grazer because it's not great in the mirrors. They're trying to go bigger and bigger than each other, and you can really punish them for that by having curves where you go 1 drop, 2 drop. They're a deck that doesn't answer Steamkin well. It's pretty easy to put your whole hand to play with that. They can't really kill a Torbrand very well, so there's a lot of games you play Torbrand and just throw a bunch of burn spells at their face.
Having a deck that can actually answer the Golos decks is pretty important for the meta and for the health of the game. If this deck can do that, that is very good.
Yeah, it beats the Golos decks as they are now. I believe the Golos shell has the potential to shift that and beat things like this if they want to, but when everyone's trying to have the big arms race against each other, where we're playing, you know, Agent of
Treachery
in the main deck, and you're playing things like Fires in your deck now, and you're like trying to do all these big mid-rangey things, you're going to get killed by these little creatures.
Right, especially when their Wraths are 5 mana.
And,
you know,
and sometimes don't kill your Bonecrusher Giant.
That's nice.
That is very nice.
Let's move to the sideboard here. We see some of the cards that the Cavalcade deck had. Chandra, Acolyte of Flame here. You have your extra Frenzies, and then you have Tibolts, as well as like your late game stuff.
Right, so that's kind of the grindy package. You end up bringing in Chandras and Tibolts often together. I think they're really good against the Golos deck, because a lot of the games, the way they squeeze out is they are able to get a Plaza of Harmony off of Golos, or they Hydroid Crisis for a little bit. You know, plus they have incidental life gain from a couple small things. So being able to stop that life gain is a big deal. Both of those cards also very good at kind of playing against some sweepers, Chandra especially. But if they kill your creatures from your Tibalt, you still got a couple points in, you still have this Tibalt in play. And they go a long way, especially helping with your hard matchups, which are the Deafening Clarion decks, things like the Jeskai Fires deck. That one's really hard for you because they have often like Fae of Wishes, or like Martin used a main deck Ether Gusts in his MPL split.
Rude.
And that's just not fair.
Yeah.
But so those are pretty hard matchups, and those are like the one deck in the field I'm really afraid to play against. But those go a long way. Having the Chandra, having the Tibalt really help there.
We've got your 4 Lava Coils hanging out over here, 2 more Torbrands, Embreth Shieldbreaker, and then 2 more Slaying Fires.
Flame Sweep.
Sorry, Flame Sweep.
Yeah.
Got to kill some zombies, I imagine.
It's actually not that great in that matchup. What you really need it for is against the Cavalcade deck. It goes a long way. And I'm really scared of some of the Adventures decks.
Okay.
Because if you don't kill their early Innkeeper, they can kind of go off. Also, Lovestruck Beast is a 5/5. So yeah, I said the critical point's a 4/4. Lovestruck Beast kind of breaks that rule. You're still able to answer it, you're still able to keep up, but there are games where they're able to go Edgewall Innkeeper into a couple of Explorer Adventurers, and you're able to Flame Sweep everything, and it helps you stay ahead. Flame Sweep plus Torbrand deals 4 to all your opponent's creatures and only 2 to yours, so that's a huge deal. And I really like the way the deck is able to, like, you know, you have Frenzy, you have Torbrand, you're able to switch which one you think is going to be good in any given matchup. So against the Golos deck, Frenzy's often too slow because they're going so big. And against, you know, green creature decks or whatever, Torbrand just wins all the combats. You're able to have that card there. And against the other smaller creature decks and against like Jeskai, you get Frenzy, which is just the best card draw spell in Standard by a mile.
Very good. How close is this deck to your #1 Mythic deck on Arena?
Right, so I did hit #1 Mythic on Arena early into the season. I went from Gold 4 to Mythic 1. I think I lost 1 match with the deck because I played against a bunch of Golos, a bunch of food, and it didn't feel particularly close. The main deck is exactly the same. I cut a Skewer for a land, because one of the things that has changed with the red deck is because you have these adventure spells, you just have so much more stuff to do with your mana. You have the Castle Inbreath, so your Flood isn't as bad that way too. So you're able to play extra lands and mulligan less. and that's a really big deal. Past that, minor sideboard changes. You know, I had red cap melees in the board for the red mirrors, but I didn't expect a lot of red. Instead, I have access. I think I added the Tabalts in that slot to help with the Golos matchup a little bit. I'm really, really happy with how my deck is for the room. I see a lot of Golos, I see a lot of food. I did lose a match to the Jeskai deck just as I expected.
As expected.
But the team is 2-1, and we're trudging along, and I'm very excited. I think this is a great winner's bracket deck.
All right, awesome to have you here. If you're out there fearing all of these Field of the Deads and these Simic decks, here's your deck to sleeve up. If you like playing beatdown, nowhere else to go than Aaron Barich. Stay tuned to Star City Games all weekend long for the action here in Philadelphia.